Hello everyone. Today's case is another one that's part of our Missing and Murdered Indigenous series. It has a lot of patterns of cases that we've spoken of before, yet the mystery is still there, and the answers are not. 20-year-old Ashley Loring HeavyRunner was a member of the Blackfeet Indian Reservation in Montana and enrolled in Blackfeet Community College studying environmental science when she disappeared in the summer of 2017. Now, this reservation is extremely large, bordering Alberta, Canada, and spanning over 1.5 million acres across Montana. Ashley was described as smart, athletic, positive, and always wanting to help. She excelled in school, always very humble about the good grades she was getting. Ashley's smile and loving nature was talked about a lot, and it said that she especially loved horses and the rain. However, despite how beautifully Ashley was described, she was dealing with quite a lot of things. Her grandfather, who had raised her and had been like a father to her, had recently passed away, and she'd also broken up with her first love not long after, when the relationship grew toxic. And both of these things were extremely hard on Ashley because those two people were part of her support system. They were two very important parts of her support system that she had now lost. And this is when Ashley began to struggle. As we know, drugs and alcohol are substances that people all across North America struggle with. The Guardian actually did a video where an officer on the reservation actually spoke about this. I definitely recommend watching it. I'll have it linked down below. But according to stats found in a 2018 survey by the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, and I quote, 25% of Native Americans reported binge drinking in the past month, and Native Americans are more likely to report drug abuse in the past month, which is 17.4%, or year, 28.5%, than any other ethnic group. Substance abuse and addictions are major concerns among these Native Americans. Results from the 2018 NSDUH showed that nearly 1 out of 5 Native American young adults aged 18 to 25 years has a substance use disorder, including 11% with illicit drugs and 10% with alcohol. Unfortunately, many Native Americans have limited access to substance abuse services due to transportation issues, lack of health insurance, poverty, and a shortage of appropriate treatment options in their communities. Although the health impact on Native Americans is complex and likely a result of multiple factors, including political, genetic, social, and cultural influences. End quote. But I think it's important to talk about these issues and this history because it wasn't just like one day Ashley turned around and fell into a bad crowd of people. These are deep-rooted issues in the community itself as well. And Ashley isn't the only one that's been affected by these issues. As I talked about in the beginning, Ashley was an amazing, lovely human until she had a lot of bad things happen to her all at the same time. She was at her lowest low in life, and that is when she fell into the wrong crowd. That is when she began to experiment with drugs, which mainly seemed to consist of older men who were either drug addicts or had criminal histories. On June 5th, 2017, Ashley was last seen by her family at their home. Later that night, she would attend a party on the reservation. This is said to be confirmed after a video was found from that night at the party where you can see Ashley in the background sitting on a couch while people around her are drinking and talking. This would be the last time that Ashley was physically seen, or so was thought. Because one of the last people to claim to have been with Ashley was a man by the name of Sam McDonald, and he claims he was with her for 6 days. After the party, Ashley is thought to have gone home with Sam McDonald and stayed the night with him. His home being a lakeside cabin in a very remote area of the reservation near the town of Bab, tucked behind a forest of cottonwood and paper birch trees. The property was also littered with items around it, and it wasn't in the best condition. And Sam here was a man in his 50s with a meth addiction, the last place that the smiley young woman with a bright future should have been. The next day, Ashley would message her sister Kimberly to see if she could send her some money. However, Kimberly was actually on a 3-month trip in Morocco, so she wasn't able to. After that, she asked Ashley if she was okay, which Ashley replied with yes. June 7th, it said that Ashley messaged an unknown individual asking for a ride. However, when this individual messaged Ashley back, they never got another response from her, which this case eerily reminds me of the Autumn Shag and Ash case, which is a case that I've covered from here in Canada. She also was an Indigenous woman who had an alcohol problem who went missing after hanging out with an individual also from the Indigenous community. And just like Ashley, Autumn also mysteriously vanished after sending her sister a text message asking her if she could come pick her up. And when her sister tried to reply to her, she never got a response again. That was the last message that is thought that Autumn had ever sent. So it's just a very eerily similar coincidence. As I said, Ashley would end up staying with Sam for 6 days. June 8th is said to be the last day that Ashley was last active on her Facebook. Now, according to Sam's narrative, on June 11th, he ended up giving Ashley a ride home because I guess he didn't want her there anymore. However, during this ride, he claims that Ashley asked him to stop and pull over on the side of the road, as you can see pictured here, so that someone named V-Dog could come pick her up. Sam claims that Ashley then asked him for directions to a cabin, which he said he pointed her in that direction. Then he claims that he leaned back in the driver's seat of his vehicle and passed out due to not sleeping for several days, which I want to assume was because they were doing drugs. After this, Sam claims he woke up and Ashley was nowhere to be found, which in my opinion is a very strange and convenient story for Sam. The fact that he claimed that he all of a sudden was going to drive her home and then she detoured and didn't want to go home anymore and wanted to be picked up by this unknown individual, which we will speak about in a moment. Then she asked for directions. He passed out conveniently at the same time she was leaving, and when he woke up, she was gone. It's just such a convenient statement to make, as if she just poofed when he turned around and wasn't looking. Again, eerily similar to Autumn Shaganesh's case. On top of that, after Sam claims to have woken up, he claims he started looking around for Ashley in the area, which is, again, odd to me because why is he looking for her when he thought she was going to go with V-Dog? I'm not saying Sam even did anything, but his statement in general is just odd. Maybe it's the drugs, maybe it was the lack of sleep, but it's odd. Why is he looking for her when he knew she was going to be picked up by someone else? It's weird, but either way, when he couldn't find her, he says he left the area. But let's talk about V-Dog for a moment, because V-Dog is no angel. V-Dog is actually the nickname of a 50-year-old man by the name of Paul Valenzuela. And Paul was actually married to Ashley's cousin by the name of Tanisha Running Crane, who went by the nickname T. Now, V-Dog here actually has a very extensive criminal history, including felony gun charges. On top of that, he was actually in a very rocky relationship with his wife T. And it turns out that Ashley had actually been seeing Paul very recently before she disappeared. Now, around this time, Ashley's sister Kimberly would return from her trip to Morocco, and she immediately realized that something was wrong. She'd actually planned to help Ashley move away from the reserve to her apartment with her in Missoula, which Missoula is around a 4-hour drive from the reservation. And this was all planned to happen after Kimberly got back from Morocco. However, when she got back, Ashley was nowhere to be found. Ashley wasn't responding to any of her messages, any of her calls. And the whole point was to get Ashley away from the reserve so that she can get a fresh start away from the bad influences that she was surrounding herself with. And the fact that Ashley was nowhere to be found and not contacting anyone, that was a big red flag. Ashley had always been extremely close to their family, so the fact that she was completely no contact was extremely alarming. Kimberly began reaching out to Ashley's friends on social media to see if they knew what happened to her, and they ended up recounting the story about the party and the timelines that I just spoke about. The Blackfeet law enforcement and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, also known as the BIA, would be brought in to try to figure out where Ashley had vanished to 2 weeks after she was last seen alive. However, police initially blew Ashley's disappearance off as an adult who just ran off to have some fun somewhere, and it wasn't a concern essentially. On top of that, the reservation only had 17 to 18 tribal officers to cover a 1.5 million acres of land. Let that sink in for a moment. 17 police officers to cover that entire area. And that was said to be due to understaffing of the police force. The department essentially couldn't afford enough officers to cover all of the land that they had, which that is a very slippery slope that causes even more problems. It didn't even seem like they had enough officers just to deal with regular crimes. And then you have people going missing and people that are murdered. How are these police officers supposed to have enough time to dedicate to trying to solve these cases, let alone get justice for the victims? On top of that, they have to involve multiple different agencies when it comes to cases like this. And if all those different agencies don't agree on the same thing, it's just a big headache that makes the process even longer and harder. And honestly, in my opinion, it further hinders the investigation. However, there were tips that began to trickle in. The first tip would come in about 2 weeks after Ashley was last spotted at that party. A witness would come forward and claim that they had seen a young woman running away from a vehicle on the side of US Highway 89. Now, this is a highway that spans across almost the entirety of the reservation, so I'm not exactly sure what particular stretch it was of this highway. However, it is said that the area is very desolate and surrounded by swamp and dense forest. The BIA, however, didn't find any signs of Ashley when they investigated this tip. But honestly, at this point, it didn't seem like law enforcement was really doing much to look for Ashley. And we see this happen in so many cases, but especially when it comes to missing Indigenous women. And this meant that the family essentially had to search on their own. And they ended up going all over the reservation, which remember is 1.5 million acres. That's a lot of land to search. But they began to do their own daily searches. They took phone calls, they followed leads, anything that they could try to do to find Ashley. Kimberly even quit her job and moved back to the reservation so that she could dedicate all her time to trying to find her sister. Other people who also had missing and murdered loved ones in the area came to help them search. One man even brought a drone and they flew it over dense swamp and forest, trying to see if they could find anything. Kimberly saying, and I quote, "If me and my family didn't search for Ashley, I don't think anybody would be looking for her." End quote. Which is the last thing you ever want a family member to have to say. Another sighting of Ashley would actually come in, and this time from a reporter in Montana named Rachel Crow Spreading Wings, who claimed that a few weeks after Ashley's disappearance, she'd pulled over on the side of the road to pick berries when a young woman approached her who appeared to look just like Ashley. However, she looked very disheveled and she seemed scared of a man who was standing not far away from her on the road who also appeared to be disheveled. She claimed that this woman that appeared to be Ashley asked her what she was doing and she told her she was picking berries, but then she got this really weird feeling about the situation because the woman seemed scared of the man, but she was also over talking to her, so Rachel claims that she then left and called the police. However, Rachel claims that she never heard back from the police, and when she tried to call the police back up again to follow up, the FBI now claimed that they had no record of her story at all. A month after Ashley would disappear, Paul would end up filing for divorce from T. However, T claims that she had no clue that her husband was cheating on her with her cousin Ashley. She'd also later tell police that while her and Paul were in Seattle, Washington around the time Ashley disappeared, Paul conveniently went back to the reservation the same day that Ashley disappeared. One article reading, and I quote, "She told Kimberly that Paul picked up Ashley and gave her a ride to another town. When Paul was confronted by Kimberly for more details, Paul claimed that she had been misinformed by T and he had never gave her a ride." End quote. Which is really weird to me because now we have two people claiming that Paul was going to give her a ride. So who's telling the truth here? A secret recording would also be uploaded on YouTube where T claimed Paul had Ashley and everyone knew it.
Basically, he has Ashley. Everybody in this town knows it.
Text messages would also come out between Kimberly and Paul, where Kimberly would ask, "Have you seen Ashley?" And Paul responded with, "Tashina is giving false info. Ask her, she probably knows more than she's saying." End quote. 3 months after Ashley's disappearance, Paul would again be arrested in Washington state, and he would go to prison for prior illegal gun convictions. During this time in prison, he actually wrote ABC producers who were doing a documentary on Ashley's disappearance, and he said, and I quote, "If you want an interview with the truth from me, you first need to get me transferred back to Montana or forget it. I know who you are, so don't bother me until you make that happen. I'll even bring you where the people who did this all to Ashley. Trust me, I am the only one who can. So get me back home, and I'll get you a real good exclusive from me." End quote. 1, how much trust do we really have in this man, Paul, who has multiple convictions and could literally just be saying all of this because he wants to get something out of it, aka wants to be moved to a different prison? 2, he just admitted in this email then that he was going to snitch on people, which I'm all for. Please do it, Paul. But do we truly believe he was going to snitch on camera? Because I don't. Normally, criminals aren't really down for that. 3, the fact that he literally said that they'll get a good exclusive from him and that he's only going to give the family closure if he can get something out of it is not only diabolical, but it's absolutely disgusting. So that right there makes me not trust this man whatsoever. He's clearly not a good human in my opinion. Now things would actually take a turn during a search that the family was conducting near Sam McDonald's property. A tattered sweater along with a pair of red-stained boots were found that matched the outfit that Ashley was said to be wearing the night she disappeared. However, it's been years since those items were submitted and the family has still not gotten results back for them. The family would also go on to film multiple mini documentaries on Ashley's disappearance, including one with ABC and one with The Guardian. The family ended up getting permission to search the trailer where Ashley was last seen that summer, and it was also a trailer that both Paul and T frequented. Law enforcement knew this trailer well because there were often parties there and nefarious things going on. They'd also searched it before. Now, while family was searching this trailer, they would end up finding a piece of carpet behind a television that looks blood-stained. They ended up removing that piece of carpet and sending it to police to be tested. However, again, no results have ever been given from these testings. And as you can see, the family seems to be doing the majority of the investigation because they're the only ones that are finding potential evidence. And things would continue to move slowly. It wouldn't be until December of 2021 that Paul would be questioned by police regarding Ashley's disappearance. And of course, he denied having any specific knowledge of her whereabouts. Years again would pass with no answers. But on August 14th of 2023, Paul would once again be arrested, but this time 130 miles away in Great Falls, Montana, by the FBI, who were executing a search warrant on his home. After announcing on a bullhorn several times for Paul to come out and him ignoring those requests by police, a flashbang was actually used and then police broke down his front door. Court documents allege that Paul, who already had felony convictions, illegally possessed a firearm and that on August 7th, he made threats to an FBI officer in text messages in which he refers to having access to firearms and stated, and I quote, "Shoot at me, I shoot back." End quote. Again, just an absolute violent person, as well as a stupid one in my opinion if he's threatening an FBI agent.
Tonight, one man is behind bars after he threatened a federal agent and had firearms illegally. Late Sunday night, the FBI conducted a search warrant in Great Falls near 7th Avenue North and 7th Street. And according to residents in the neighborhood, law enforcement was in the area for well over 3 hours. Joey Taylor had a chance to comb through the court documents and talk with neighbors in the area. And Joey, what do we know?
Well, from the looks of things now, you wouldn't be able to guess that the FBI and other agencies lined these streets less than 48 hours ago. Neighbors tell me it all started just before midnight on Sunday.
It was around 11:30. I heard a loud bang, and after that, glass breaking and a lot of screaming and yelling.
According to the FBI, they say they were conducting court-authorized activity related to an ongoing investigation. Neighbors say they heard and saw flashbangs being used and the FBI SWAT team breaking down the door of the house.
FBI being involved in anything obviously is going to set your hairs on end a little bit in your neighborhood because you have no idea. Didn't know anything crazy going on or anything around here. So yeah, it was kind of freaky with coming out and seeing that many of them. I mean, there were at least 30 or 35 of them out there.
The man who was arrested was Paul Valenzuela. He had his initial appearance in federal court this week. According to court documents, he made threats to an FBI officer in a text message saying he has access to firearms and, quote, shoot at me, I shoot back. If convicted, he faces a maximum of 15 years in prison and a $250,000 fine.
Ashley's family, though, believes that police have not done enough to search for Ashley. Kimberly even going as far to testify to Senate members, saying, and I quote, "From the very beginning, both the Blackfeet tribal law enforcement and the BIA have ignored the dire situation that Ashley is in and have allowed the investigation to be handled in a dysfunctional manner. This isn't just a reality for our family, but a reality for many murdered and missing Indigenous women's families." End quote. The day after Kimberly spoke at that meeting, an FBI agent would contact her, telling her that they had found human remains. Now, these remains would eventually turn out to not be Kimberly's. And authorities would come out and dispute the claims that the family were making that they weren't doing enough, claiming that they had conducted 60 interviews and had done 6 separate searches for Ashley. Yet it makes me wonder, how is the family the only ones finding all of this potential evidence and information, yet none of that stuff's even being tested? So truly, what are police doing, in my opinion? What is going on? Again, I don't know if it's just these 17 or 18 officers that are involved, but it seems the BIA is also involved, so you'd think they have more people brought in then, but it's just a mess. It would also take 18 months for Ashley's name to be put into the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, which is also where I found her. Ashley's case overall is just a very complex one, in my opinion. Truly just seems like she was hanging out with some very bad people that aren't going to snitch on each other and really talk, and that is kind of why we're not really seeing results here. And it really just makes me wonder who to believe as well. Did Ashley even walk away from that trailer? Or did something happen to her at Sam's lakeside cabin? Maybe she OD'd on something and Sam covered it up because he didn't want to get in trouble. And then he made up this whole narrative about Paul picking her up and all of this stuff. But then you have to think T claims that Paul ended up leaving and going back to the reserve the same day Ashley went missing. And we have 2 people now claiming then that he was supposed to go pick Ashley up. Sam and T. So are they all just conspiring against Paul then? Because that's what you have to expect. Did Sam really pass out on the side of the road in his vehicle and wake up and Ashley was just gone, which I think is a crazy coincidence. His story just doesn't sit right with me. Why are there just so many different stories and so many lies, it seems like, and everyone's pointing the finger at each other? It's a big he said, she said. And if that clothing that was found that still hasn't been tested is Ashley's, in my opinion, that would mean that something happened to her in that area. And that clothing was found near where Sam lived, but that was also around the area where Paul was allegedly supposed to pick her up, it seemed. So if Paul even did pick her up, he could have done something to her and dumped her somewhere in that area, again, near where Sam lived. So who is it? But then you have to look at all of these apparent sightings. There was someone that seen a woman running away from a vehicle, which in my opinion, why wasn't that called in the police? Again, it seems like no one really wants to call the police there because there's not enough cops to even cover the area. And then we have that other sighting from a reporter, which you think would be a reliable source, but then why didn't the FBI put her information in file if she reported it? And why did she have to call back? Is her story even true? Was it even Ashley that she actually seen? We also have to think, if Paul didn't just immediately kill Ashley and was like maybe keeping her hostage or maybe trafficking her or something, and that is why people were witnessing her around the area, that would kind of maybe line up with what the reporter witnessed. Maybe if it was, say, Ashley and Paul, they were trying to lure her off, that reporter, to do something nefarious with her, but she ran off in time before anything could happen. But then you have to also consider that Paul went to jail 3 months after Ashley disappeared. So if he did have her and he was keeping her somewhere, where did she go after that? Because he went to prison. But then it makes me wonder, why would Ashley even be going along with any of that? Why wouldn't she run away? Why wouldn't she try to contact family do something, unless she was, I guess, like actually being restrained and held somewhere. But it's been, you know, like 7-8 years going on now. There's always a potential that she is being held somewhere. It's happened before. We've seen the stories of women being held for decades and decades and then, you know, getting free or being released, etc., being found. But the fact that she dropped off the face of the earth is a bad sign, and the fact that her clothing potentially may have been found in the area she was last thought to be in, according to at least one man, it's all very concerning. Just in general, this whole case is a mess. We do have to consider, though, that Sam went on camera and talked, T went on camera and talked. The only person that wouldn't go on camera and talk was Paul. He refuses to talk to anyone unless he gets what he wants. This means we're trying to rely on the information from career criminals and drug addicts, which sometimes drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff can really mess with someone's memory as well, so we do have to consider that. We also have to remember it seems like none of them want to snitch on each other. All we know is that something really bad seemed to have happened to Ashley, and someone knows something out there. Yet, no one is talking. Or if they are, they're just pointing the finger at the other person. Kimberly has dedicated her life to trying to find her sister. As I said, she quit her job, she moved back to the reservation. She has put her entire life on hold to try to find Ashley. And yet still, no one is talking. Police aren't moving any faster with getting any testing done, it seems. And sadly, answers just aren't coming. Where is Ashley and what happened to her? What I want to know is what you all think about this case. And is there any information that I didn't include in this video that you know about? Let's have a chat about it down below. Where do you sway on this? Who do you think is responsible? I'll be down in the comment section chatting with you all. My heart goes out to Ashley's family, and I truly do hope someone out there finally says something and speaks and we can get answers for Ashley. This is just a really unfortunate one because I feel like if it had been investigated properly, there might be some answers out there to get. But I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.